Resourceful Designer, episode 232, Writing the Perfect To-Do List.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. Congratulations on 5 years of Resourceful Designer, Mark. And thank you for letting me be a small part of it.
And thank you so much, Wayne, for being the voice that greets my listeners for all these years. In this episode, I'm going to talk about time management and how simply jotting down a list of items doesn't make a proficient to-do list. I'm also going to share a tool that can save you time, which converts to saving you money. Now, before I go any further, as Wayne mentioned, on September 30th was the 5th anniversary since I first launched Resourceful Designer. It's been a very fun journey. I've made a lot of friends along the way. I've touched a lot of people. I've gotten a lot of emails, a lot of messages from people thanking me from around the world. And I just want to take this opportunity, whether you've been listening for years or you're new to the podcast, to say thank you for spending a little bit of time with me, listening and learning what I have to share on running a design business from home. I also want to give a special shout out to Gabe, a fairly new listener to the podcast. He only discovered the podcast in July, and he let me know that he has listened to every single episode since then. Now, Gabe's not the first person to tell me this. He's just the most recent, and all I can say is, wow, that's a lot of Mark to listen to. So I have some great listeners, you among them, and I just want to say thank you for being part of this 5-year journey I've been on, and the continuing journey that I have ahead. So thank you. Now, what have I been up to this past week? Well, I've been working on 4 different websites, which is interesting. I remember at a time when I was coding websites, I would never work on more than 2 websites at a time. I had to complete one website before I would take on another project. Well, now with WordPress and being able to juggle things a lot better, I was working on 4 different websites this week. 2 of them are, I'd say, 95% done. I'm just waiting for final approval from the clients and maybe a few little tweaks here and there. And the other 2 are still in progress. I also had a fun time designing a poster for a local client of mine. They're doing their fall sale and they wanted a poster done, so I designed that for them, as well as a couple of podcast cover arts for some new clients. So that's just a little bit of the work that I've been up to. Now, I do have a special announcement about the Resourceful Designer community. You've heard me week after week discussing the community. Well, I just want to let you know that at the time I'm recording this, at the beginning of October, I will be closing the community to new members at the end of October, and I won't reopen it again till sometime in early 2021. So if you've been on the fence about joining the Resourceful Designer community, now's the chance for you to join before I close the doors for new members. We've got a bunch of members in there now. Things are going really well. And I just want to make sure that everything is working smoothly before I introduce even more people to the community. And if you're not sure if the community's for you, maybe community member Kat can sway your decision.
Hi, I'm Kat Moran. I joined the Resourceful Designer community a little over a year ago when I quit my full-time job in another industry and decided to dive into becoming a freelance graphic designer. I made several investments in my new business around that time. And besides my office chair, the Resourceful Designer community is absolutely the best investment I've made in my business. What can I say? Ergonomics are important to me. I learn something every single day from members of the community, and I have always gotten help when I asked for it. Mark is super active in the group, and he has tons of experience and wisdom to offer. I love that the group has members at all different points on their business paths, and folks that specialize in different areas of design. We have a great mix of skills and expertise in the group. So if you have already invested in a good office chair, it is definitely time to give the Resourceful Designer community a try. You won't regret it.
Well, thank you very much for that great testimonial, Kat. She and so many other people are loving the community. In fact, many of them have told me that when they have a problem or a question or just something to discuss, the Resourceful Designer community is the very first place they go to because they know that the members there are people they can trust and they know it's a safe place. So if you think you would like to join the Resourceful Designer community, you better do so before the end of October by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And now this week's Resource of the Week. And this week's resource is Logo Package Express 2.0. You may have heard me talk about Logo Package Express before. I even did a YouTube video showing how to use it. And I have to say, it is one of the best design resources that's come along in quite a while. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Logo Package Express, it's an extension for Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud. You have to have Adobe Illustrator, I think it's 2018 or newer. And what this extension does is it takes the task that would normally take an hour or more after creating a logo for a client, where you would have to package the logo up in order to give it to the client. So you would have to save a JPEG and a PNG and a black and white version, maybe a reverse version, and all the different things, all the different files, label them, organize them, and then send them off to the client. That's a task that if you've ever done it, you know it's very time consuming, very monotonous, not very fun to do. And it would usually take an hour or more to get that done. Well, this extension, Logo Package Express, can do all of that in under 5 minutes. And now with version 2, you get even more control on what you can do. First off, what I love, and I'm very grateful that Michael introduced this, is an optional Pantone first workflow. So I don't know how you design your stuff, but I often will design a logo in Pantone colors. And then afterwards, I will convert it to RGB or CMYK before handing it over to the client. Well, the original version 1 of Logo Package Express relied on the RGB or CMYK version, and then it would closely match a Pantone color to whatever CMYK or RGB colors you had. Well, in version 2.0, if you start off with Pantones, it will keep those Pantones and then develop the other colors based on the Pantone colors that you chose. So that was a feature that I had actually requested when it first came out, and I'm so glad that it's in 2.0. It also allows you to do some customization of the file and folder naming. You can add padding now around the logo so it doesn't crop it right to the logo. You can add some padding. You can scale, multi-scale export, so you can choose different sizes to export as, and so many other things. So if you do logos, even if you don't do very many, this tool can save you a lot of time. So much, in fact, that it pays itself after 1, possibly 2 uses. Now, if you don't already have Logo Package Express, you can check it out by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/LPE20. And that's a special link that will give you $20 off your purchase. And if you already have version 1 and you want to upgrade to version 2, follow that same link. And if you're signed in, it should give you the price at upgrade for $20 only. So for a brand new user, $99, and it can save you hours and hours of your time. I keep getting messages from people who watched my video or read my blog post on Logo Package Express and saying how happy they are with it and how they can't believe how much time they're saving because of it. So once again, if you're interested in it, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/LPE20, and that'll save you $20 off your purchase. And now, writing the perfect to-do list. If you were to do an online search, or better yet, if you were to search the Apple or Google app directories, you will find dozens, if not hundreds, of options for creating so-called efficient to-do lists. Myself, I'm kind of partial to Anylist for things like groceries and shopping. My wife and the kids, we all use Anylist and absolutely love it. I also use it to keep track of the unending chores and tasks that any homeowner needs to do, all the things that have to be done around the house. And as far as work goes, I have my go-to is Evernote. I have Evernote fine-tuned with different notebooks for every part of my working life. But it doesn't matter if you choose one of these or any of the other dozens and dozens of tools out there, or if you just use pencil and paper. None of it matters if you don't understand the fundamentals of the perfect to-do list. Now, way back in episode 66 of the podcast, I discussed how building a to-do list with tasks and projects can help you. And I still adhere to that, but there's still more that can be done with a to-do list. You see, for a to-do list to function at its best, you need to manage your time as well as your tasks. If you can, I was going to say master, but maybe that's too strong of a word. Let's say if you can hone your time management skills, then your to-do list becomes much more achievable. And when you pair your to-do list with good time management, it allows you to create a sustainable schedule that lets you get things done without feeling under pressure. So let's start off with writing the perfect to-do list. In order to create the perfect to-do list, you need to determine not only what to put on it and in what order, but also what not to include on the list. If you put too many things on your to-do list, it becomes unmanageable and you become discouraged. So what I like to do is divide a to-do list into 3 sections. Section number 1 are the non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are all the things that absolutely have to get done. No ifs, ands, or buts. These are priority items such as scheduled appointments or tasks with fixed deadlines. Things that if you don't get them done in a timely manner, it'll just be too late. So that's the first part of your to-do list. The second part of your to-do list is what I like to call the procrastinatables. Procrastinatables are all the things that absolutely need to get done, but are not as time sensitive as the non-negotiables. It would be nice to get these ones done today, but if you don't manage to get to them, tomorrow or the next day will be fine. However, if you keep putting off the procrastinatables, if you procrastinate too much with them, they will eventually become non-negotiables. So you can't ignore them altogether, but they're not as pressing. And the third section of your to-do list has what I call the optionables. Optionables are all the projects and tasks that you would like to do, but they have no priority as for when or sometimes even if you should be doing them. This last section is a little bit tricky. You need to look at each one of these tasks and figure out how each one aligns with your goals. In both episodes 55 and again in episode 150, I talked about setting goals for your design business. But when you're writing your to-do list, you need to figure out, especially in the optionable section, which one of the tasks aligns with your goals, which ones will help you get to wherever that goal is. For example, maybe there's a webinar you were kind of interested in, but you weren't able to attend it live. However, you do know that there's a recording and it's available for 3 or 4 or 5 days after the webinar. So that's something that requires time to do. Well, you need to figure out if watching that recorded webinar aligns with and will help you achieve your goals. If yes, then make the time on your to-do list to watch it. But if no, then why not just let it go, forget about it altogether, and don't even think about putting it on your to-do list. It's an optionable. And then this third section, the optionables, you need to rank them in descending order of priority, with the most important ones at the top going down to the ones that are least important, that if you don't end up getting them done, it's not that big deal. So now that you have a to-do list that's divided into the 3 sections, it's time to actually get to work by checking them off. Now, Mark Twain is credited with saying, if you're tasked with eating 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest frog first. In other words, look at your to-do list and figure out the biggest and possibly the most dreaded task on the list and do that one first. Now, it might be a non-negotiable or it might be a procrastinatable. Not only will getting the biggest and most dreaded task out of the way make you feel better, unless it really is to eat a frog, that is, but chances are it's not, but getting it done will make the rest of your list seem easier to get through and more achievable. So whenever possible, try to do this big task before anything else. I even recommend you do it before you check your email and social media and all of that. So if you're starting your day with a list of things that you need to do, pick the biggest, most dreaded, most dreary one and just get it over with. And then once that's done, then go ahead, check your email, check your social media, because those two, they have an uncanny way of really disrupting and often adding to a to-do list. So it's best to avoid that feeling of overload by getting a few things, if not just that one big thing, done before you end up having to add more to your to-do list. So the first thing you should do is tackle that big one. Then when it's done, you look at your non-negotiables, your procrastinatables, and your optionables, and figure out what you're going to do according to your body clock. You see, the order that they're listed in on their list, they may be listed in priority with the most important ones towards the top, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do them in order. It's best to divide that list, each section, according to your body clock. Now, I'm sure that there are certain times of the day when you feel the most focused and the most creative, or times when you feel that brain fog, you're feeling a little drained. So you need to arrange the items on your list to suit the optimal time of day for you and the task. Personally, I feel most creative around mid-morning to early afternoon. That's why, given the option, I will always schedule appointments or meetings in the morning before 10 a.m., or I try to schedule them late in the afternoon, sometime after 3 p.m. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not focused during those early mornings or those late afternoons. It's just that I know personally, I feel more creative between, say, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., and I want to take advantage of that. If that's the time where I'm at my creative best, that's the time I should be using to do the creative projects on my list. The same thing kind of applies to all the menial tasks or the quote-unquote managerial work like bookkeeping and invoicing and writing contracts. I like to get that stuff done either first thing in the morning. It may be one of those big tasks, like I said, the frog, big task that's not really fun. I like to get it out of the way in the morning, or I would personally leave it towards the end of the day when, I'm kind of getting a little beat, my creativity isn't as high as it was before. Well, then I'll work on this other stuff that doesn't really require that much creativity. Now, I mentioned earlier how time management and to-do lists go hand in hand. And that's because you have to have kind of a rough idea of how long each item on your to-do list will take in order for you to plan your day accordingly. I start work at 9 a.m. And if my creative period starts around 10 a.m., that means I have roughly an hour every morning for me to do the less creative tasks on my list. And I take that into consideration when choosing from my list what to do. See, I usually write my lists the night before going to bed. I'll compose what I need to do the next day. And when I sit down in the morning, I'll look at how I feel, I'll look at the list, and I'll figure out something that might not be the most creative. It's just something that needs to get done, and I get it done so I can get it off the list. You know that just the feeling of scratching something off, whether it's checking something or taking a pencil or pen and scratching it off a paper list, it releases endorphins that actually makes you feel good. So I take that into consideration when choosing what from my list to do. For the things that might take more than an hour, I'll leave them until after 3 p.m. instead of starting them in the morning and maybe having not enough time to complete them. Now, I personally don't like to use calendar-style apps or lists, stuff that blocks things off into 15, 30, or 1-hour blocks. Because I find those things, you may be tempted to block off a time for a task, such as, say, blocking off 30 minutes for a phone meeting with a client. But most tasks aren't measured or structured that way. If you schedule a 30-minute call and it's over in 8 minutes, then that's great. I mean, you have another 22 minutes left to your day or added to your day that you can use for other things. But what if you schedule a 30-minute call and it goes over for 45 minutes or an hour? You've just added more stress because you had booked a certain amount of time and you probably have something booked in the time periods afterwards. So for that reason, I don't like using things that block off times. Now, I know that time management and to-do lists are not as cut and dry as all of this. I don't stop doing whatever I'm doing at 10 a.m. because it's my creative time, nor do I stop creating at 3 p.m. because, I'm no longer going to be creative. No, that's ridiculous. It's just the kind of structure that I personally follow. But your day needs to be fluid. It needs to be flexible. And of course, there will be all sorts of unexpected things that you can't plan for. Maybe the school will call and say that your child is sick and you have to go pick him up, and that throws a wrench into your plans. Or a client gets a hold of you in a panic because their website is suddenly down. Those are things you can't plan for that can really ruin your to-do list and your day's schedule. And that's why dividing your schedule up into the non-negotiables, the procrastinatables, and the optionables will help you in those situations. They'll add a little bit of peace and order to your daily life. And if something comes up, if a wrench gets thrown into your plans, then you know that the optionables, you don't need to worry about that. Even the procrastinatables, it'd be nice to get them done today, but if you don't, it's okay, you can do them tomorrow. And you only have to worry about the non-negotiables. And even those, sometimes a non-negotiable doesn't necessarily mean today. It just might mean it's a priority. But having this list will really help you when, as I said, life throws you a curveball. It'll help you organize and get back on track once you are able to get back working. Because life can't be perfect. It would be nice if it was, but that's unrealistic. But if you learn to manage your time and to follow your to-do list, you can get a lot of stuff done in whatever amount of time you allot to yourself every day. Now, I would love to know how you manage your to-do list. Do you follow a similar structure that I do? Do you divide it up into the non-negotiables, the procrastinatables, and the optionables, or something similar? Let me know. Leave a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 232. Now, before I go, I want to remind you one more time that the Resourceful Designer community will be closed to new members at the end of October 2020 until sometime in 2021. So if you've been on the fence or you've been thinking about joining and you want to be a part of a great community of dedicated designers that are all there helping each other out, then don't wait. Head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community and join today. And don't forget the resource of the week, Logo Package Express. If you create logos, even if you only do a couple a year, this will pay for itself in the simplicity and time saving of packaging up dozens, if not hundreds, of variations of logos to give to a client. And to save $20 off your order, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/LPE20. That's LPE20. So thank you once again for tuning in, and thank you for helping me celebrate my 5th anniversary of Resourceful Designer. I'm grateful to you and to everyone out there who's listening, whether they're longtime listeners or somebody new to the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.